Hey, welcome back to Meet in the Middle. I'm Christine Brown. My guest in studio today, this is so fun. It is the mayor of Kennewick, Steve Young. And, you know, Mayor, besides doing this, you have another job. I was joking earlier, but it's kind of like a part-time job, isn't it? That's Mission Support Alliance.
I either have one part-time job or I have two full-time jobs. I never know what it is. But yeah, I also work for Mission Support Alliance. You don't make enough as a mayor to pay your bills and let your wife go shopping, which she's an expert at, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard that she likes shoes.
Oh, she likes shoes, and she likes to play golf, and then she likes to go play some more golf, and then she'll go out of town and get some more shoes.
Yes.
Yeah, she's pretty good at it.
Well, okay. So we need more shopping in the Tri-Cities, so that is another thing you need to work on. But in the meantime, here, you have been mayor for 7 years?
Yeah, I think it's actually 6.5, but I claim 10.
You claim 10.
Yeah.
It feels like 10, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And do you like?
What are you laughing about? I haven't even started yet.
Yeah, I know. Do you like being mayor?
I absolutely love being mayor. That's for the voters out there. It truly is. It is very rewarding to be the mayor, to be the one person on the council that gets to chair the meetings. More importantly, it opens up avenues to further help the community.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the new Manhattan Project National Park to working with the other energy cities nationally. But there's so many avenues to go to make the Tri-Cities better, not just Kennewick, but the Tri-Cities. So yeah, I'm loving it. I really am loving it.
Yeah, good. I mean, it looks like you do, and you keep going back and doing it more and more, again and again. So I guess you do. All right, I want to talk about Southridge because that seems to be, you drive 395 going towards, Hermiston or taking the turn to go to Yakima out there on I-82. And every time I'm blown away. There's some new construction going on that I just noticed the other day. 2 days ago. What is that? It's right close to the road.
Truthfully, I don't have a clue.
Really?
There's so much building going on out there, I can't keep up. But, and they don't always tell me till I get called out to meet the new owner of whatever business it is. Whenever I drive by, and I try to get by 3 or 4 times a week, I'll see a sold sign on a piece of property, or I'll see building materials laying out there, and I can't seem to find anybody to tell me who's building what. It's growing so fast out there. What our plan is to make Hermiston a suburb.
I'm not sure they'd appreciate that, but that's really interesting. So the city of Kennewick set up the infrastructure to create all of that. Is that what happened?
Exactly. It was what was called an LRF, Local Revitalization Fund. The Washington State came out and said, look, we need to try to find a way to invest money into the cities so that the cities in turn can send us back more tax dollars. It's really all about give and take, right? So they offered this up to 11 cities. The first 11 cities to hit the button on the computer got a shot at raising the money. In other words, the state gave us a certain amount of money to pay the debt. In turn, we would then have to generate enough tax revenue to cover the amount of money coming to us. And so we took in about $24 million total from the state, and they're paying that to us in $500,000 increments each year. However, in the first 2 years that we had the project going, we sent them back $190 million in tax dollars. With the hospital being built, the medical office building, all the things that got built out there, along with the tourism that was connected to it. Remember, we built the apartment complexes, houses went up. In Washington State, it was the only city to be successful with the LRF. So, being the aggressive type person I am, I went right back over to legislation and said, hey, let's do it again. And the problem was they had 10 other cities that didn't quite fulfill the commitment, so I said, well, let us have their money and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But, that was a great opportunity for the city. We're still working that now. Senator Brown is working hard to help us, along with Mo Walsh from Walla Walla, both trying to help us do another LRF. Of course, our goal is to jump across to I-82, build an industrial area south of I-82 so it's not in our neighborhoods, not in the middle of town, but create jobs. And we talk about industrial, we're talking about light industrial, we're talking about things like computer programming and components and and things like that. But we're trying to create some new jobs for the future. We want young people to move here and want to stay here.
So across I-82, that they're wheat fields now?
No,
Or
they haven't had
nothing?
crops in 18 years.
Oh, okay.
It's just dead land. They can't water it. They can't spray it. So they can't grow anything on it.
Oh.
The farmer's name is Christensen. Great, phenomenal guy. And I remember we were in a hearing when we were talking about expanding across the highway, and he said in his last crop he planted, which was a couple of decades ago, he got like 5 bushels an acre, and he said that really doesn't pay for the gas in the tractor. So yeah, but future-wise, which is the state's very important organization that believes cities should go straight up and not out. They're fighting all the cities all the time. And they decided Kennewick should not expand any further. We had railroad tracks for industrial, and we had golf courses we could put industrial on, and we had canyons that we could put them in. It's very illogical, but we had to go through that. So we're starting over. We're going to do it again. It just takes a lot more work to start over.
Yeah. Oof. If you want to join our conversation, maybe you have a comment or a question for the mayor, don't hesitate to call us. Here's our number. It is 547-8726. So I would say that Southridge is probably, I mean, obviously it's a huge success. I mean, just drive by it and you see all the development there. But what would you identify as the biggest challenge facing the city right now?
Well, I think it's the same challenge that's facing all the cities. The state budget is in crisis mode, and what they've done, we had a program at the state level called the Public Works Trust Fund. Public Works Trust Fund was our money, so we had money sitting in this account at the state level, and cities could go borrow that money for infrastructure purposes at a very low interest rate. And that allowed us to keep our roads growing and keep them in good shape, and sewer lines and water lines. And all the cities worked on this. I don't remember exactly how much was in there, but I think it was around 350 million. Well, the legislation came in and said, we're going to take it. They didn't ask. They didn't offer up any options. They just took our money. So for the next 6 years, we no longer have that access to low interest rate loans. That's the biggest challenge all the cities face, because as you can see on a national level, infrastructure is a #1 priority. Yeah. And without it, now what do? We can't raise taxes. We won't raise taxes. Our council is against raising taxes. So what we're trying to do is find alternatives to keep the infrastructure going. As you know, and people have complained about, we tried the chip seal program. It didn't work. It wasn't the right thing to do. And it costs as much as $1 million a mile just to do a road, to put a new top on it. So we've got some real struggles, and all the cities in Washington State are dealing with this.
Okay. And the legislature's not helping you out.
Well, we heard the excuses that we didn't know that's what we were taking.
Ah.
You know,
Whoa.
it sounded a lot like my grandkids. I didn't know that wasn't mine. But we're going to struggle for 6 years trying to figure out what to do. We went back to legislation and said, you've got to overturn this. Well, they've already spent the money, so what do you do?
Well, give us some background here. I want to know, what is the annual budget for the city of Kennewick?
Our annual budget is, wait a minute, I gotta look at my numbers here.
Yeah.
It is $234 million is our biennial budget, which is about $117 million a year. That covers 384 full-time employees and a couple of hundred part-time and seasonal workers. So it sounds like a lot of money at $117 million a year, but the reality is we've cut several million off of our budget over the last 5 years, thanks to our city manager, who works really hard to keep our costs down. But you know, when you've got nearly 400 full-time people and you've got 200 more, you're up to around 600 people that you're trying to pay for. That's our budget. But inside that budget, of course, is infrastructure and new growth, developments, and so on.
What are the sources of revenue? I mean, where does that 117 million come from?
Well, that's a great question, because I don't think most people know. The biggest part of our revenue comes from sales tax. So that's
Okay.
why the city of Kennewick promotes so much retail. But anytime we build something, there's sales tax associated with it. Anytime we have a car dealership move in, car dealerships are some of our biggest sales tax revenue streams. But we have our Costco, we have Walmart. All of those generate the money that we live off of. So we're always promoting new businesses. We'll go all over the country to try to get a business here, like Bob's Burgers was a good example. Our second, there are certain charges for services, such as business licenses is a good example, and other fees that we associate with. But then we also have grants, we have state shared revenue, where we generate revenue, and then finally, we have fines and forfeitures, just like any other city. But most of our money comes from sales tax. We get a very small amount from property tax.
All right. We are going to take a little break right here, but I have got another long list of questions here. And one of the things that's always on my mind when I talk to anybody from cities or counties is the extent of collaboration with other cities and counties. And that's like one step short of us being combined as one government area, but collaboration seems to be a step in that direction. We'll talk with Mayor about that next.
Especially on each side of the river. For example, on our side of the river between Kennewick, Richland, and West Richland, we actually work quite a bit together. In addition to that, for 6-7 years now, all 4 mayors have met every month. And the reason we meet is to talk about the issues that affect all of us. We're trying right now to figure out if we should have what's called a summit, where we get all 4 city councils sitting in the convention center, open to the public, to talk about those issues that are across the board for all the cities, and try to get feedback from the communities. All of that's hard to do, though.
Why?
Well,
that seems
because
easy to do.
when a full council comes together,
Yes.
it's a council meeting.
Okay.
So now you
all
got to
right.
have 4 council meetings. So you gotta, each one has to start. There's a lot of complication
Okay.
to it, and who's going to answer the questions, right? You know me, I'm going to end up answering half the questions for Pasco, and then Matt will reach over, who's twice my size, and hit me in the back of the head.
Yes.
But it's a very tough thing to put together. But we are working very, very close in this community. See, we're no longer small towns. We used to be these 4 small little towns. Now we're becoming 4 mid-sized cities who are building into one great big city in the state of Washington, the Pacific Northwest. We get a lot of attention on the west side. We feel our competition is Spokane now. And so it's changing how we think, how we look at things. We have to start thinking bigger now. You were talking earlier about South Ridge and how the city is growing. Simply go out to Vista Airfield, go out to the Three Rivers Entertainment District. New hotels going up, medical buildings are going up every month. It is absolutely amazing how much medical is being built in Kennewick. And then you look at Columbia Drive and you look at the Bridge to Bridge, River to Rail program that the Port of Kennewick is doing. We're so fortunate to be partnered with them because this place is just going to explode on Columbia Drive. It sits on the water, it's in the perfect location, it's going to be wine villages, but it's going to be family structured. So much is happening just in the city of Kennewick. Then you go to Richland, look what's happening in Richland. It's just growing in leaps and bounds. Every day you're hearing new businesses. Go to Pasco, it's the same thing. Now you got West Richland, who's taking a very aggressive approach. They're building new buildings for their city center, and pretty soon it's going to be, we're going to have a hard time saying Tri-Cities. We're going to have to start learning to say Quad Cities. So lots happening.
They do a good job of trying to remind us of the Quad Cities too. Yeah, I like that. So do you think at any time in the future, if you look way into the future,
No.
that it's never going to be one? It's
No, I
never
don't,
gonna
no, and here's why.
be- Okay.
First of all, most areas where they've had big cities, let me just talk Spokane.
Yeah.
What did they do? They went the other way. So they created Spokane Valley. It's the bigger the city, the more difficult it is to manage. I can assure you we'll never cross the river into the other county and try to put those cities together. There is the possibility someday, probably not in our lifetime, you could see the Benton County side where Kennewick and Richland all come together for a single city. I don't think so. I think the structure we have right now is good for this state and good for our community. There is some competition, even though we don't admit it. We're always competing with the other cities, but being the way we are right now, we're getting our costs down, we're doing all the right things, but we're growing in leaps and bounds. Well, that's good. That's what we want. we're going to go south. We don't have any other direction to go. Richland has to go toward Hanford, but can only go so far. Vasco's going to go north and west, but that's who we are. West Richland, I'm trying to figure out where they're going. I mean, you know, bless their hearts. Gary, the mayor out there, is a great guy, but every time I talk to him, he's talking about jumping over into Idaho or something. I don't know what he's talking about, but
It's
a lot of
just
growth.
acres and acres and acres of housing out there.
Yeah.
It just goes on forever. So, yeah. I'm wondering, and maybe you've already talked about it, but do you see that there's like a recent win for the citizens of Kennewick? Something that's happened that affects the city that you would say, you would hold that flag up and say, hey, that's a big win. Got any?
Yeah, you know, I do. I actually have a win. I know. Hang on a minute. I wanted to do this right. I was recently called to a meeting on Clover Island. Kennewick was named one of 50 America's best cities, communities. And as a result of that, they gave us a check for $50,000. And the purpose of that check was for economic revitalization. However, it's not over. The organization, part of that being Frontier,
Yes.
big sponsor of that is Frontier, part of that is to advance now to the next level of communities. So the ultimate goal is that the winning community in the United States will get a check for $3 million.
Whoa, okay.
Now, we're pretty optimistic, and here's why. First of all, the contest goal is to stimulate economic revitalization in what we call small towns and cities all the way across the country. And we have until November of this year to use the $50,000 to develop this comprehensive strategy that would accelerate the local economy while at the same time improving quality of life. So you're with me on that? Well, we already have that, and we've had it for several years now. The framework that makes our city better for the long haul that we're proposing to the America's Best Communities judges is the River Shore Master Plan, the Bridge to Bridge, River to Rail Corridor Studies, where we just had another open house last night, by the way, and had over 50 show up for that. Then because of Chris Watkins and Tridec, they pushed this regional branding plan. You remember
Yes,
when
yes.
we went through that? And then on top of that, we have this target industry recruitment analysis that was done. So all the things that are required are already in place.
Wow, yes.
So we're investing the $50,000 in the implementation piece instead of the strategic development. So we feel we're already out in front of all the other cities. Whether we get to the end and get the $3 million or not, first of all, it's great to be one of the top 50 cities in America. But secondly, we want to at least get to the next level, the semifinals. So people will know what we already know, what a great city this is.
Yes. Well, and because you're from Mission Support Alliance, I think this works out really well as for me to pose this question to you. But I think you'd have to agree that almost all of our ferocious development is based on Hanford money. I mean, when you have $2 billion pour into a community, it comes out somewhere. So there's a lot of money coming in here from the federal government. What about when that money starts to dry up? Then what?
Yeah, it's a great question. If we don't have forward-thinking people leading the way, it's going to be a problem. We have to be doing now what we should have done 20 years ago. The one thing I will say is we've opened up new avenues. The fastest growing industry in the Tri-City area now is medical. It's no longer talking about Hanford. Then you've got education. Look what's happening at WSU and CBC. We're just growing in leaps and bounds. Agriculture has gone from farmlands to high technology. We're creating new opportunities.
I'm going to add tourism to the list.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Tourism will,
yes.
you know.
So
we are
yeah,
the place
okay.
for tourism. I mean,
Right.
you've got 364 days a year sunshine. The only time it isn't sunny is when I play golf. But it is one of the ultimate places. What we've got to do is do better with the River Shore. We've got to take advantage of the greatest asset we have, besides our people. You know, we have the highest educated people in the country. We've got the greatest workforce around. I mean, you think about what we call bargaining unit people. We're talking about labor unions. You
Yes.
think about the workforce we have at Hanford and what they're able to do. Imagine if an industry came here. You know, you're going to pay for what you get, but you're going to get the best people in the country. These workers don't have to travel all over the country and do for others. They're right here locally. And then we have the river, which is such a huge asset. We just haven't, you know, Richland's doing a pretty good job of working the river shore.
Mm-hmm.
Kennewick's got a long ways to go. And that's going to be very important to the future of this community.
Yeah, well, we've got to work better with the Army Corps of Engineers. We've got to find a way to crack that nut, that's for sure. So, hey, if you've got a question, maybe there's an issue that the city has just dealt with that you're happy about or not happy about. We'd love to hear from you. 547-8726. We'll be back in just a moment to talk more with the mayor of Kennewick, Steve Young. Hey, we're talking with the mayor of the city of Kennewick, that is Steve Young. And I wanted to ask you about how the drought is affecting the city.
Well, there's two parts to that. Just listening to the weather forecast, I want to remind everybody how serious this fire danger is.
Mm.
If you take a look at especially the city of Kennewick, West Richland, this side of the river, it wouldn't take much to have a major firestorm come over the tops of those hills.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just begging people. It's bad enough when they happen by accident, but carelessness is a whole other problem. I remember just a couple of years ago when we had to evacuate some people in Hanson Park. It's a very scary thing. As the mayor, I worry about it a lot. But when it comes to the drought, our position, we have water. We're not in any crisis mode in the city of Kennewick. We prepared for drought weather. We have a phenomenal public works director. And he's always thinking 5-10 years down the road. And we have reservoirs, we have water, we have sufficient water. However, with that being said, let me just caution everyone to be a little careful. There's no fear of a water shortage, but we don't want to get crazy either. We know with the KID restrictions and what they're having to do with their system, we're just asking people to be very conscious of how much water they're using for the yards. We agree, we want our city to be beautiful. People invest a lot of money in their yards and their flowers and their gardens. At the same time, we got to be a little careful and be a little conservative about it. But as far as the city of Kennewick goes, we do not have any fear of having a water shortage.
Okay, that's good. I have seen, I was thinking of schoolyards. I've seen some of those yards turning a little bit yellow, but I'm not sure I've really noticed the public parks. Have you, John?
Not really, no. And I think part of it is the fact that the difference between, you pay once for your irrigation, but if you go all silly happy with your city water, the next time you get your water bill, first you say it, then you do it, you're going to get a shocker. So
Yes.
I think that, you do pay for the city water, and if you're going to use a lot of it,
You're going to pay for it. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't want to sit here and make people think that it's okay to go water the yard and then have them call me up in August and say, "What did you do to me? It's costing a fortune." But
Yeah.
but you're absolutely right. The one other thing I want to bring up too, I want to remind everyone the dangers of cross connection contamination. In other words, if you've got your city water and your irrigation systems connected so that you can switch between the two, please make sure you've got a backflow device on that system. The last thing you want to do is connect using city water and then you've got irrigation water running into your house. So please, if you're not sure, get a hold of somebody at the city. They'll come check it for you, whatever we got to do. But be very, very careful and make sure your system's correct for that.
And the same with your pool too, because all it takes is 1 teaspoon of mustard algae and you have a giant vat of mustard.
Oh, okay, yeah, so we should be using city water on our pools. Hey, so I've got you here. I want to talk a little bit about the Toyota Center and the Convention Center. There's certainly been a lot of talk. I mean, you attend a lot of meetings. I sit on the Visit Tri-Cities board of directors, and there is a real concern about many larger conventions being lost now to the Spokane area because they are building a gigantic facility, and it's going to take away those conventions that may have come here. Now they're going to go there.
Right.
So how are we gonna keep up with that? What's your thought on that?
Well, it's absolutely a problem. We have been told, the interesting thing is what happens with conventions as they grow. Year after year, they get bigger and bigger. We have 4 or 5 that are right on the verge of being too big to come to Kennewick, to our convention center. And losing that is millions of dollars in spent money in our community. And we didn't do a very good job when we went back to the public and said, hey, we need to expand the convention center. We need to actually double its size in order to be keeping these conventions here. Now, we're strategizing. What do we do? My opinion and the opinion of our council is let the public decide what they want. So ultimately, we're still going to have to go back to the public and say, guys, this is what's needed. This is why we need it. But we also have to not just think about the conventions. We got to think about the community. When we do things in the Tri-Cities, sometimes we lose sight of who we are, and we get so focused on the tourism side that we forget we need to provide to the locals as well. When you look at the Coliseum, it's old. It's a problem. It's costing some money just to keep it operating, and we're working some avenues with that. But then you look at the Windermere Theater. Some of the most fun I have every year is going to the Broadway shows, and I see people having fun and enjoying it, but it's not quite right. It's not a real theater. It's a temporary structure. Now, we're not talking performing arts. We're talking about Broadway theater. So one of the things we're talking about doing in the convention center is having a Broadway theater in the convention center as part of the new expansion. So all of that's being done, but we're going to have to go back to the voters eventually and say, what do you want? And that's what we're trying to figure out right now.
And this time around, you really have to help people understand that it's to benefit me and you. John Doe's, my neighbors, we're going to benefit from the tax revenue that comes out of all of that spending that the convention work brings in. So, John McKay. John McKay's passing me a note, practically giving me sign language. I don't even know what he's talking about. All right, so we've got about a minute left. That's what he said to me. What else would you want to tell people?
Look,
Mayor Young.
Well, simply this. First of all, I want to thank the voters for keeping me in office. I also want to thank those who didn't run against me this time for not running against me.
Yeah.
I actually don't know what to do with myself. But I do want to thank the citizens of Kennewick. The one thing I want people to remember is not just your home, not just your job, not just your vehicle. Everybody in our community sends a message to those on the outside and to the other cities. And I want people to stop and think about how much pride we want to have in our city. We want our homes to be nice, we want our cars to be nice, but more importantly, we want to be neighborly. We want to be friends with those around us. We want to be friends to those that aren't from here so that they may want to be here. And we want a clean community. We struggle year after year with trying to figure out why people are throwing garbage on the streets. It's not necessary. We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And let's take some pride in our city. I'm very proud of Kennewick. I'm from Oklahoma originally, and I remember my wife, when we first came here, she said, I'm not staying, and I couldn't get her out of here if I tried.
Yes,
this
now.
is our home.
Yes.
35 years later, this is home, and I believe everybody that moves here, I always get a kick out of it and say, well, I'm actually going to go back to so-and-so. And before you know it, they don't leave.
They don't leave. All right. Thank you, Mayor. Boy, those are good words to end on. I appreciate that. We'll be back to wrap up today's program. Stick around.